Somewhat lost in this pandemic era is the fact that this is the 400th anniversary of the Pilgrims landing on these shores, arriving from England aboard the Mayflower. As part of the commemoration, its full-scale replica, Mayflower II, recently returned to Plymouth after a massive restoration. In Plymouth Harbor, Mayflower II is the embodiment of promise, a full-scale replica of the ship that delivered pilgrims to American shores, where they expected to establish religious freedom.
It was a Greyhound bus of its era. It was just a ship that a group of people had hired to get them to what they thought would be Virginia and ended up being New England.
Today, though, it's an indelible part of this nation's founding. And on the 400th anniversary of that famous sailing, Mayflower II has just undergone a 3-year, multi-million-dollar restoration. What do you see when you look at the Mayflower II?
The American story. That for me, Mayflower is a memory device, and it is a symbol. For someone that has direct family ties to that ship, it may mean one thing. For an indigenous person, it may have another meaning.
The ship is operated by nearby Plymouth Plantation, where Richard Pickering is Deputy Executive Director. The historic site recreates life during those first precarious years as the Pilgrims settled here, although Plymouth Plantation's name is changing.
We wanted to make certain that the Wampanoag voice, the indigenous voice, was as important as the English voice, so we have become Plymouth Patuxet Museums.
Back to the Mayflower II. It gleams once again, and more importantly, it's staying afloat, says Captain Whit Perry.
When I first took the job before we did the restoration, the bilge pump would be coming on 7 or 8 times a day to pump out the water coming in. And of course, the first rule of any boat or ship is keep the water on the outside.
The ship's restoration happened at Mystic Seaport Museum in Connecticut, where a team of shipwrights and artisans restored the ship's sails, wood, and metal parts, sometimes even using 17th century tools.
No one was just coming to work to punch a time card. Everybody took a vested interest. Come on aboard, Jared. Let's go aboard Mayflower II.
I'm sure it never gets old for you.
Not at all.
Like a kid still excited to show off his new toy, Perry took me around the ship, pointing out the paint colors, bright combinations chosen so sailors could identify ships from afar, and the 'tween deck, where more than 100 Pilgrim passengers were relegated for their 66-day crossing.
It's kind of like no umbrella drinks and a carnival cruise for those folks in 1620.
So quarantined, but no social distancing.
Exactly.
Perry points out where restoration has happened, like on this windlass, which hoists the anchor, and where whole sections of the ship have been fully replaced. An expedition all its own, with wood sourced from around the world.
We actually started coining the phrase from tree to sea. We would start right with the log in the woods, and one of my favorite parts was going out in the woods with a spray can to pick the trees right out of the forest.
Steering the Mayflower was nearly as complicated.
You can see that we can't really see much out here at all. So how do you steer the ship? Certainly they would have had a magnetic compass, and the helmsman would be down here, but if you look at this hatch grating, the officer of the deck would be giving steering commands from up on the half deck.
Mayflower II was gifted to the U.S. by England in 1957, a thank you for American support during World War II. It crossed the Atlantic then and set sail again on the open sea this summer as it returned from Connecticut. Perry captained the ship with a crew of 27. Is it peaceful?
Oh yeah. Yep, it's all of those romantic sounds that we all know and love from movies, of the creaking of the rigging, the wood working against each other as the ship moves like a living thing and twists and moves, which it's meant to do.
There's one sound, though, which Perry saves for the occasional visitor who also happened to have emceed the ship's launch ceremony in Connecticut.
Jared, thank you very much for showing an interest in Mayflower. I think you should ring our bell for us, the Mayflower bell.
I would gladly. Do I get down and all into it?
What we're going to do, it's about 1 o'clock, so that would be 2 bells on the sailors' watch schedule. So if you'll give it a ding-ding, that will let the sailors know that it's 1 o'clock.
All right, here goes. 1 o'clock, and all is well, and as it was.